Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. Big Jim and Goody are with me as usual, but not much rugby to talk about this week. So what do you guys think? Should we just dissect Ealing's win over Saracen for the next half hour then?
No, let's just leave that and ask us how we are. Ask us how we are, Andy Rowe.
Mate, how are you, Jim? Yeah, how are you, Jim? Because you look dishevelled. You look ill. I mean, you look normal, but that's what you normally look like, dishevelled and ill. How are you, son? You don't seem like you're buzzing today.
You said that last week and you were wrong, and I was buzzing. You've said this week and you're right. I'm flat as a pancake, lads. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just feel down today. I don't know what it is. Maybe the fact that it was no ruggers, but I had ruggers. I had my rugby fix. Not that I was yearning for it, but I had the rugby fix. But for whatever reason, I've gone out of bed and I just haven't seized the day.
Have you cleaned your teeth? Have you cleaned your teeth?
What's my teeth got to do with it?
Well, I don't know, because you get out of bed. Normally, if you have a shower, clean your teeth, and then you take on and attack the day, don't you? Seize the day. You just normally get out of bed, don't bother cleaning your teeth, and mope around.
I don't clean my teeth till Thursday, generally. But Andy Rowe, you're right. I was actually looking at the news. Don't ever look at the news, especially now. It is one of the most depressing things you can do. But you need to stay informed. You're right. It's Blue Monday, whatever that means.
It's the day that the most people look to change their jobs around the world. It's International Job Changing Day.
No, it's not. Monday. No, it's not. Is it?
Yeah. People come back from their new year, they trial out their job for a year, and then they're like, I don't want to do this for another year. They look for another job.
Is that what you're doing, Andy Rowe? Because you keep pushing this fucking podcast down our throats that you're doing.
I'm looking for another podcast. If anyone's got one.
I don't think anyone's enjoying their job at the minute, are they?
I love my job.
Well, you're one of the few exceptions. Actually, there's probably a few of you that like being at home, watching TV, in your slippers, eating crisps. That ain't me. That ain't me. So it is Blue Monday. You're right, and that's probably why I'm flat as a pancake. But I get a stem, if you call it a stem, a sprinkle of adrenaline. Let's call it a stem of adrenaline. Chatting to you lads, doing the rugby pod.
A stem of adrenaline.
Yeah, I don't know.
A shot.
Whatever you call that thing that you smoke. A stem. Let's call it a stem. A stem.
There's a Jimism if ever there was one.
A
stem of adrenaline.
I've got a stem of adrenaline just chatting to you lads. So we'll keep it short and sweet because there ain't nothing to talk about. But I'm sure afterwards the endorphins will be flowing. I'll feel better for seeing you, Andrew, just because that makes me feel better by seeing you. If I think I'm tired and under the weather, I look at you and I feel better. Hey, I thought you had an operation anyway.
I was supposed to, yeah, but it got cancelled. It was supposed to be on Friday, but just blame China.
Why? What have they got to do with you getting your ankle fixed as too heavy?
Well, my surgeon, who's a wonderful bloke who listens to the pod, I won't name him, I won't name him down to patient and doctor confidentiality, but he also works in the NHS as well. He works privately, but in the NHS. So he has prioritised his role in the NHS and cancelled all his surgeries for a few weeks to get us through this difficult period. So yeah, it got cancelled. But I've been feeling the love this weekend, Jim, over the last few days. Well, after announcing last week that I was going to have the big operation on Friday, the amount of messages I got on Twitter, on Instagram, wishing me luck and saying, hope it goes well. I was amazed. There's people out there that have nice things to say on social media.
No, yes. It's not just on social media, it's about you. No, they don't.
Yes.
No, they don't. Not to you.
So to the millions out there that are sending us messages, obviously you saw I put a couple of things out over the last few days. We got to number one in the charts as ever, basically down to Gary Graham, and people were loving it. And then pick up the Sunday Times on Sunday, obviously, and have a flick through the sports section. And there's the chief sports editor, chief sports writer, chief sports correspondent, the boss, David Walsh. He's a massive fan of the pod.
Who would have thought?
And now the millions, even more millions know about it.
It was great to see that by David Walsh. And he actually rang me as well the day before, which was lovely to hear. And we were talking about a lot of stuff in rugby at the minute. We're talking about the concussion part to that because the Times have been quite big and they've done a few articles in recent weeks. Dan Vickerman, obviously, the sad story around him, they interviewed his mum. And obviously everything that's going on there, they'll be at the front of the queue, won't they? Because they are a credible media outlet. So yeah, that was lovely to hear from him, and lovely that he wrote them kind words. Who would have thought a 65-year-old man who's been in journalism for years says he listens to the Rugby Pod and calls us edgy and informed
and intelligent? I don't
was
know.
It intelligent? Was it intelligent or informed?
I think it might have been both.
His actual words, Jim, were Jim and Andy Good. No mention of Andy Rowe. Do you notice that? Jim and Andy Good are informed, intelligent, edgy, and well worth tuning in for. Intelligent must be me. It can't be you, Jim.
Edgy's definitely me.
Edgy's definitely you.
Oh, cool.
Because I don't think I'm edgy. Informed, we both are. We have our sources.
And what's Andy
well
Rowe?
worth tuning in for.
What's Andy Rowe?
Why am I even here?
He keeps banging on about his other podcast, I think.
Yeah, you're the glue, mate. You're the glue, and we are the sounding board for your new podcast that I don't know if anyone knows you've got, but it's all over social media.
I'll be in the Sunday Star Times before you know.
Sunday Star Times, it's a different newspaper, mate.
Sunday Star, there you go, that's it.
So yeah, that was, I've been feeling the love then. There's been loads of positivity, and I've realised one thing this weekend as well. Well, two things actually. Obviously spending all weekend with the kids, no work on at all, which was nice. But two things. One, I fucking hate Baby Shark.
Is that nice?
Yeah, it was very nice.
Spend time with the kids. Yeah, there you go. So you need to add some detail onto that.
Well, it was very nice, but what I need to add, and the big thing I worked out again this weekend, it happens every time. Whoever invented that fucking song, Baby Shark, babe, fucking hell, he needs to, or she, whoever it is.
It's an it.
Oh, mate, the most frustrating thing. And the missus bought them these two Baby Shark toys for the bath that just play the same song on repeat. All they do is sing it. When I can't get it off their iPad, they go outside, they pretend to be Alexa, and they're just singing the Baby Shark song themselves. I mean, that has gone through me all weekend. In one ear, out the other, and I just can't get it out of my head. So that's been doing my head in. But also, I've worked out that Isabella, very proud of her this weekend. You know, like your proud father. And you see those moments when you're like, yeah, that's my girl. And I definitely know she's mine after this weekend. It's been confirmed. Well, you say that, Jim. One of my favourite pastimes in the house, when all the noise is ramped up, is finding my own little space in my ensuite and just having an hour, pants down on the toilet. Just
figure it out.
I might not even do anything, but I've just got my phone out. I've got some peace and quiet, and I am just enjoying the moment.
Tweeting. Is that the moment you tweet? Is that from the toilet?
Yeah, possibly sometimes, yeah. Anyway, so obviously we're doing the whole potty training thing that's going pretty well, but Isabella has got this idea at the minute that because Daddy sits on the toilet a lot, and they know it, she needs to sit on the toilet a lot as well. So I've spent most of the weekend in the toilet, and she's like, Daddy, just sit in here with me. I'm going to do a big poo-poo. And she's there for about 45 minutes. And every time I get the phone out, I'm like, this is what Daddy does on the toilet. Gets the phone out. She's like, Daddy, play me Baby Shark. I'm like, no, get off the toilet now. This is wasting my time. Frustration, but she's definitely mine. So kind of proud of her as well.
She
likes a long poo. All I'm saying is she likes a long poo.
Don't we all? That is the excitement of the day now. Genuinely, getting up at 6 a.m. and waiting for Beck to get up. We alternate days till 7:30 in the morning. Yeah, they get up about 6 a.m, 6:15, 6:30 if you're lucky.
Wow.
And if I'm getting up, if it's my day to get up, I am waiting till 7:30, 8 o'clock to hit that toilet for an hour, is all I'm saying.
You saw some rugby over the weekend though, didn't you?
Yeah, I was there, mate. I was there. Don't know if you saw me, but I was. No, you didn't see me. No, Glasgow, #Warriors, we are Warriors, all Warriors versus #Always Edinburgh. But it's quite a game, actually, to be fair. Can't remember what happened.
Well, there was a bit of drama, wasn't there, Jim?
Hit me with it and I can tell you about it.
There was a bit of drama just before the halftime hooter. The old train goes past.
Nick Groom kicks it out. But you know what? Only until this morning, I didn't see it.
Mate, what?
Well, this is the thing, Goody.
You're commentating on the game and you've only noticed it this morning.
Because the way the numbers are for Premier Sports, and they're trying to utilise their main man in the middle, Jim Hamilton, speaking in the third person here. So I was doing commentary, but I had to go down for half time, and you need to leave 2 minutes before. And because of the protocols, you can't just walk down the stairs. That'd be way too easy. So you have to go into the stadium, you have to go round, down, back up, down, come back through the door you just walked through, and then back down the stadium. So I've missed the end of it because of the COVID protocols that stadiums are putting in place. you need your mask for commentary, but then you don't get to get signed off to not do commentary with your mask. So I've missed it. And then I saw some stuff on social media, saw a few tweets, and had to put it in the search engine on social media as how we consume our life, and I saw it.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That
Mate,
gave me something to talk about.
Not only has he not looked at the clock, actually, he looked up at the clock and then still booed it out when it wasn't even 40 minutes on the clock or down to 0-0-0. But he's ran back about 40 yards as well. Literally, not goading them, but he's just like looking around, running.
Come on, big fella.
I'll just kick it out here. And then they give a penalty away. But yeah, and then obviously the try near the death. And they could have won it, couldn't they, Edinburgh?
Aroni Sal. Sal scores in the corner.
That's a great name, isn't it? Aroni Sal.
Good player as well. Good player.
Scottish?
Of course. In a couple of years. No, he's not. Some talking points. What we got for you? Glasgow, bottom of Conference A. Struggling this season. Feel for Danny Wilson, Johnny Bell, Kelly Brown, my good mate. Losing Adam Hastings as well to Gloucester. Dunky Weir's going back to Glasgow. As we spoke about last week, Dunky Weir going back there. They needed something. Edinburgh going all right. Big news out of Edinburgh. Duhan van der Merwe leaving to go to Worcester. Got capped by Scotland. Why being horrible? Then takes 300 grand with Worcester. Could be more. And they signed Hamish Watson, Jamie Ritchie. And that's about it. Glasgow's scrum was very good. Got absolutely hosed the week before. Xander Fagerson, friend of the show, 7 penalties in the game 3 weeks ago. Actually, 8 penalties, 7 of them at scrum. Can you believe it? And then they shored the scrum up against Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And they beat them.
Yeah.
That's it. Young Ross Thompson, we gave him man of the match.
I was going to say, that was going to be my question. Who did you give man of the match to?
It's player of the match, but you'd like him.
Yeah. And Ross Thompson, first start for Glasgow.
There you go. You've done a bit of research. I like that.
At fly half, 13 points. Who needs Donkey Weir?
He was good.
Yeah, nice.
He was good. Aki Saili should have got man of the match. He was a loose head prop, stayed on for 80 minutes, scrummed unbelievably well. It was a good game, to be fair, because some of the games have been rubbish. We can speak frankly on here. And that one was very good. So I was happy to be there.
It's interesting, isn't it? It was the flip opposite of the one you commentated on the other week that was 0-0 till the 68th minute or whatever it was.
I quite enjoyed that one as well.
And didn't Cockers say pre-game, what was his comment? If you want to see something entertaining, go to the theatre. Oh, no, Cockers, they're closed, mate.
That's exactly what I said on comms.
Did you?
That's exactly what I said. We just think alike. You watched the game. I know you did. You watched it.
I did not watch the game. I do not subscribe to Premier Sports to watch the Guinness Pro 14.
There might not have been much action on the pitch, but there's been plenty to talk about off it. We've spoken about it in the last couple of pods, and now Alex Sanderson has been confirmed as Sale Director of Rugby. Do you guys think he'll be suited to a DOR role rather than head coach?
Unbelievable signing for Sale. We said it. Everyone's spoken about it. I didn't think it was going to happen. It obviously has happened. 500,000 reasons why, like Goody said. Huge for Sale. Absolutely huge. He's got an unbelievable squad there. You look at the makeup of that team, both with the academy players coming through, but the South African contingent. Again, we've spoken about it. I keep using that phrase because we have, but for the millions of you who haven't, we've had Simon Orange on here talking about the way he sees the club going forward, new training centre, flying the flag for Northern Rugby with Newcastle. So he's a massive signing. If he can do what he's done at Saracens and mould a culture and bring that all together, they're going to be a hugely successful team.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I echo everything Jim said. We spoke about it a bit last week and talked him up, but it's rightful to talk him up because he's been very successful in what he's achieved at Saracens. And, park all the salary cap stuff, that's nothing to do with him. When you talk to people and get into the nuts and bolts about his coaching and how inspirational he is and how he thinks and, the different edges he brings to a team, he's worked wonders. So it can only be a massive positive for Sale. The interesting thing for me is I'm surprised you got through to his phone though, Jim.
Why?
Well, apparently Ashley's been calling him non-stop because he's trying to leave Harlequins to go back up to Sale. I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I know it's the truth as well. Because apparently as soon as Dimes left Sale, or however he left, whether it was pushed or walked, Ashley was desperate to try and get that deal back on the table because he ain't up here down at Harlequins.
Well, if Alex Anderson watched the game against Racing, he'll be offering him £5 not to come. So
But yeah,
Worcester's the one that we're in about in the big one.
Yeah, but there'll be loads of Saracens players and people that have always been involved with Alex and have close relationships with him that will think there's a major opportunity there now.
Yeah, do you think he'll take many people with him?
I don't think he will. I don't know whether there'll be an unwritten rule or promise, but it's a difficult one because that's the first question I asked my mate. I said, do you reckon he'll take Joe Shaw, Kev Sorrell, or he'll want to an Ian Peel or whatever? Because that's what the football coaches do, don't they? You see they go as a team because you go with your trusted confidants. But yeah, you do have to ask the question. I don't think he will. Dorian West is the forwards coach there. Old school, tops off Morlin.
Can you see, this is the thing, like, we both know Dorian West, Nobby, aka... we both know Dorian West, aka Nobby. Everyone knows what he's like. Everyone knows he's proper old school. Get your tops off, maul until the cow sheds and back. That ain't Alex Anderson, is it? I know Alex Anderson's got a bit of bite in his sessions at times, but they're polar opposites, those two.
Yeah,
maybe it's a match made in heaven.
Exactly. You know, you've got Anglesey there. I don't know whether...
Has Al got a dog?
Well, let's say he has. I imagine with the kind of get-up that Al's got in London, he might have one of them chinchilla things that looks like a cat. So Pete Anglesey will be walking that anyway. That's all we know. But huge. I tell you what's great for rugby as well. The fact that you've got Saracens, if they come back up, we can maybe talk about that. But I'm sure they will. Because it'll be ring fence, like I said 3 years ago. But the fact that you've got Mark McCall, Rob Baxter, you've now got Alex Sanderson, Paul Gustard at Quins. You actually look at the makeup of some of the coaches in the Prem. I know I've missed a load out as well.
Steve Borthwick, have in your mind.
Ooh, teabag. You've got some great coaches in the Prem now, and Alex Sanderson at the helm for Sale. I will reiterate, they need to win the World Cup. Even though they're not in it, they need to win it.
You after a job, Jim? Do you put your hat in the ring? Do your CV go in there?
What, for Sale or Saracens?
Yeah. Well, either, because there's a job open at Sarries now, and I heard there's a fair few ex-Saracens lobbing their CV around for that.
Come get me.
Any names mentioned, Jim?
Starts with a 5, I'm in.
50.
Well, we mentioned Ealing beating Saracens, and ring fencing looks like it's imminent, but one of the options on the table seems to be pausing relegation and expanding the Premiership to 13 and then 14 teams over the next 2 seasons. Can you guys see that happening?
Well, Jim, the first thing I'm going to say is, before we get into the ring fencing conversation, we rewind. All the way back to when, as you said, the Ealing Trailblazers smashed Newcastle Falcons in a pre-season friendly, and you stuck into the Newcastle Falcons, I don't believe. And now I'm sat here a few weeks later, Jim. My old club, Newcastle Falcons, near the top of the Prem. And old Saracens, your old club. No, they got done by the Trailblazers too. What are your thoughts, James?
It was effectively a draw. You look at the scoreline; it was that close.
It actually wasn't. It was they closed it up with a try and a converted try with the last play of the game, didn't they? So it was actually, was it 27-19 pants around your ankles time, apart from the try at the death.
Let's just call it a draw. Leave it at that. Huge for Ealing. They've talked a big talk, and we can talk about the ring fence and stuff, because I'm sure that they want to be in a position to go up, whether or not that is within the ring fence or whether that's in a year's time. It's what we're hearing. Who knows? I love how rugby is so streamlined. At the end of every single sentence that we're talking about things, I'm putting who knows, because no one knows what's going on.
There's a pandemic, Jim, isn't there?
Of course. Well, even if there weren't a pandemic, it's hardly that streamlined, is it? So you look at it, it's massive for Ealing. They're playing again this weekend, and I've got a feeling it might be slightly different. Saracens, everyone's saying, they didn't have their first team out. Well, they didn't, but they had Billy Vunipola, they had Duncan Taylor, they had Rotti Sheegan on the wing. It's not as if they had an academy team. That's still a very good team. But I mean, you think about the Ealing Trailblazers, how fired up for that game. You talk about cup final and World Cup wins that Sale need to show this season. Massive for them. So, and I suppose that puts pressure on the powers that be who are talking about the ring fence, because anyone you speak to or you hear speaking about Ealing talk about their appetite and their ambition to be in the Prem, right? So the fact that they beat Saracens, it was Saracens' 4th team. What am I saying? Look at the team. Look at the team. There's no Marrow. There's no Owen. There's no Mako. There's no Jamie George.
Either way, it was fair play to Ealing Trailblazers, and I felt part of that victory for them. I felt some connection with it because
you don't like Saracens.
No, nothing to do with that. The 10, Craig Willis, was my understudy at Newcastle back in the day. When did I ever tell you I kept Newcastle up? Yeah. Craig Willis was the young 10 underneath me then, so he learned a bit from me. Basically, he learned not to train but just play at the weekends. And when I say play, walk around the field, hardly breathing properly, and then just kick a few goals. But he kicked a few goals, didn't he, Craig Willis? So delighted for the Ealing Trailblazers. It'd be nice if they did come up into the Premiership, because it's not too far from me. It'd be a home game effectively. Maybe I'll host their corporate hospitality as well.
And we should say as well, before the owner of Ealing rings us and says it is the Trail Finders and not Blazers, it's just banter, because that's what we do, because his company is what the team's aimed after, and they obviously need all the profile they can get.
Yeah, the whole discussion around ring fencing, it's always been there. And does this victory for Ealing make a difference to it? I don't think it does. I think the only way you could really say that a sensible solution is to ring fence it to 13 clubs is if Trailblazers win the championship in whatever format that's finally completed in. And as Mark McCall said after the game, fair play to Ealing for producing what they produced on the day, but he'd like to think there'd be a very different team if they met in a knockout stage, the final, whatever it may be, come May, June time, whenever that is. But, ring fencing's here. It's going to happen at some point. How it happens is the big question. And do the Premiership clubs want to split the money 14 ways instead of 13 ways currently? They've already diluted their share by selling out to CVC, last year. And a lot of them are taking that money, and that money's been and gone due to COVID. So, again, it's a decision that the clubs have got to take. The RFU, we've said it loads of times on here, the RFU Council decide and have the final decision to make around whether that can happen, promotion, relegation, because they are the kind of bearers of what happens in across the English leagues. So, plenty of things to talk about. I think I'm dead against ring fencing long term, but for a couple of years, get Saracens back up and ring fence it to allow Ealing to continue to build, because it's 50 million quid, the difference, I reckon. And that's not a throwaway comment. I reckon the difference between being sustainable in the Premiership with a stadium that meets the criteria and your squad over a period of time is a 50 million quid investment.
Well, the reason there hasn't been much rugby this weekend is that the Champions and Challenge Cups were suspended, and we haven't had confirmation of what's going to happen for the remainder of the season yet. So we can have a chat now with the EPCR's top man, Chairman Simon Halliday joins us. How are you, mate?
Under the circumstances, I'm very well. Thank you very much.
Well, Simon, Happy New Year and all that palaver. Tell us what's happening, mate. What is going on? Just hit us with something, please.
Well, there was a time I wished I was in the higher upper echelons of the French government, so I could have perhaps altered the decision. But government decisions you could do nothing about. We have a. I think the timing of all of this was very unfortunate, because obviously the cases and the strains and the issues of the variants, etc., were right in the forefront, and the French teams were feeling it, and obviously the government stepped in and stood us down for our 2 weeks, and obviously remains to see what happens going forward. So we could do nothing about that. The future is on our own destiny, in the sense that we've got 4 weekends towards the end of the season that we can do something with, and the three leagues have immediately sat down to think how we can recreate the excitement of the tournament whilst we know that we've lost some time. But these times we did this last year. Everyone's had to adapt, and we'll adapt again.
And we'll come to what that looks like later on in the season in a bit. But I just want to talk to you about the rumours that started escalating sort of the week before last, where it was the back end of the week before where they were saying that the French government are saying this, and then we didn't actually get full sort of committal that the games were going to be postponed till about 4 o'clock on the Monday afternoon. I know there's been frustration from clubs. Are you saying that that's purely the French government and their sort of timelines with making the decision, or is there anything else that the clubs could have done to sort of either speed that process along or not?
There's a very clear understanding of what happened, which was that the EPCR with LNR at the French league went to the French government, who were asking questions about protocols and the risks and such like. Obviously, there was the couple of instances of the week before where Toulon decided they didn't want to play and the Stade Francais didn't travel. And so we took to the French government all the protocols that have been signed up between all the leagues, so representing the clubs clearly. And the French government decided, notwithstanding that, to call off or to ask the French clubs not to travel. So we didn't get the sort of clarity that we would have liked. They were dealing specifically with the LNR eventually, so they wrote to them and the LNR passed it on to us. I'm sure there's something governmental and political about that, in the sense that the French government's talking to their clubs, as opposed to probably they didn't feel they could perhaps talk to the whole organisation, which of course includes the rest of the UK and Italy. I suspected something like that. We're never really going to know. The decision was made, and we made a very quick decision that if the French clubs weren't going to be able to play, that we wouldn't just do the bits that were possible, because that would obviously bring the integrity of the tournament into question. People would know what the results were and what they might have to do at a rearranged date. And of course, there is no date to rearrange because of the compression of the season. So we were put in that position. We had no alternative, as we said in our statement, but to accept that ruling and get on with it.
How difficult was it for you when you mentioned the Toulon case and the Stade Francais case before that? I know there's some noises coming out of Toulon saying they weren't happy that the Scarlets were given the points, etc. How difficult was it for you to make those decisions when ultimately everyone's health and safety is at risk? And sometimes, the French, and Toulon in particular, said they weren't happy to play, but then they felt they were penalised for not playing, even though they were okay COVID-wise, supposedly.
Yeah, I think, look, no one is satisfied with off-field decisions. You don't win anything off the field. I think all the leagues have decided that if a game couldn't be played for COVID reasons, that there would be decisions made. So all the leagues signed up to that, and people understood that whatever decisions were being made, and of course at the end of the day, these are human beings playing the game. They've got families, they've got relatives. Some might be ill. You just don't know, do you? So no one's ever going to question the human being's right to change their mind on something. This is only a sport. It might be business, but it is a sport. And if they felt that they were unduly walking into risk situations they didn't want, they made those decisions knowing what the outcome would be. But you can't, if in a situation like this, you have to have an outcome. Otherwise, and of course, everyone's got their different way of dealing with it. Premiership have got their way. They've got protocols in the other leagues as well. And, it comes back to that time when if a team, for example, had a match frozen off, but they hadn't made another pitch available, or they hadn't gone down that road, then they'd be ruled against for not having done all they possibly could to have a fixed six. Kind of comes from that. I think we have to keep looking at these things because none of it's satisfactory. And obviously, in the end, it's become reasonably immaterial, because I think that we're not going to, at least I hope we're not going to prejudice anybody into the latter stages of whatever we set up because of a COVID result.
And Simon, what point does it become an impossible task? You look at the Premiership and you can understand why that would carry on, because it's all around England. The same with the Premiership, the Pro 14, arguably with the Italian teams, and obviously travelling to Ireland. But with the Champions Cup, the Heineken Champions Cup, at what point does it become an impossible task with all the travel, with no fans in the stadium? I think for the listeners and the viewers of the pod, it'd be really interesting. I know the answer, for you to maybe say why we're pushing so hard, not just to cancel the games and actually postpone them and try and replay them later on in what is already a congested season.
Well, we have a bit of space, because the next gap, if you like, is not till April. That's our next. That was going to be the quarterfinals. We've constructed a home and away quarterfinal narrative, which I think would have been amazing, and everyone's really looking forward to that. The clubs are really receptive to that format, which again came out of crisis planning, because obviously we changed things this season to reduce the number of weekends in respect of COVID. So we already came up with that. So there is some time. I can't predict vaccination rollouts and how safe people are going to feel over what period of time. It's going at different paces, as we've seen. So this thing will unfold over a number of weeks, but we are definitely planning for the last 4 weekends in a format that's going to keep enough teams involved that will, bring the integrity of the tournament that we need, rather than, fast track a limited number of teams and go straight to a semi-final or something, as people were kind of saying, is that what you should do? I don't think that fits, and the leagues have recognised that. So they've worked very hard to come up with a series of options. And what we've regrettably had to do is have plan A, B, and C in this unique time. So, but the best minds are looking at it. It's all the tournament directors and the leagues themselves trying their damnedest to make sure that this tournament completes. I mean, I think you look at the quality. I mean, even the quality of the first 2 rounds, really, when you look at some of those matches, the Munster Claremont game. I mean, it's a sensational game of rugby, and you get a snapshot of really how powerful this tournament is. So I think there's a general will to complete it.
You say some of the greatest minds are looking into it. Myself and Jim Hamilton are included in that as well. We've been looking into it, and we know that there's 4 weekends possibly left to go. The most common sense one from our perspective would be 16 teams in a round of 16, and then final, semi-final, final, obviously single legs. That's clearly one of the options. We've seen a lot of different ideas come out in the press. Can you give us any information on what plans A, B, and C look like? How close are we to a decision to be made? And does a lot of it depend on the Six Nations as well? Because the French, for once, they're doing exceptionally well in the tournament, but they're pulled out, which seems a strange relationship, I suppose, when you could perhaps understand they wanted to pull out if they weren't going so well, but most of their clubs are doing exceptionally well.
I mean, none of this can be seen in isolation. I think that if we assume everything else takes place, I mean, when have you seen a 2-week initiative in the last 12 months of the pandemic, that hasn't sort of lasted for a bit longer? And we all hope that, the season continues undamaged from here. If it doesn't, then, and I've said it before, that I think we should take a clean sheet of paper and work out how we complete the season from wherever that start point is. And we've done it before, and we'll need to do it again. So if the Six Nations is impacted, and we're obviously being reassured that it won't be, but if it was, then the game needs to come together and we need to work it out, because you're dealing with the same players. The assets are the same. The top players are playing either in Europe or the domestic leagues or international rugby. So we have a number of weekends. How do you do it? But if that's not the case, then, as I said, I think the general direction of travel is to have more teams contesting the latter stages in the next round, because one, it mitigates that COVID impact if there is one. It might leave 1 or 2 teams kind of on the wrong side of the draw in one sense. We know home advantage means a lot in this tournament, but at the end of it, I think everybody is understanding of the circumstances. So I do think there'll be an outcome where you see a good chunk of the top teams competing in the next round and then on to the quarter, semis and final.
And who's the end decision maker on that? Is it EPCR themselves, or is it yourselves, or is it the clubs collectively? Yeah,
I think in these circumstances it's everybody, because I mean, obviously EPCR's got a very remember, we are the leagues and the unions.
Yeah,
so it's not like this is a separate organisation here. I think that the leagues are so important here because they can see how the season's going to unravel, and what, if any, adjustments they're going to have to make to their own tournaments, and what they've already had to make. I mean, look, obviously the debate about the Premiership teams not playing in these 2 weeks, and why. And some of the French teams have played. 1 or 2 of the Irish teams, the Pro 14, have played because of previous suspensions. So everyone's doing their own thing around that, but we can all see what it's going to look like later in the season. So the leagues with EPCR will make that joint decision, because you can't look at it in isolation, as I said before. And if we get other games being called off or having to reshape them, then we just need to look at it in the round, because the fan is the important person here. They've already put up with a hell of a lot, and we're trying to make certain that they can see a structure to the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, that brings me on to my last question about it. I think we're all in agreement and arguably acceptance that there's not going to be fans during the Six Nations. We're hoping to try and get some fans back in the stadium come the summertime, hopefully. From your position, and I say that you've been around the game a lot, you're obviously operating at the high ends of the decision makers in the game. Like, I listened to Rassie Erasmus say that he'll take option Z of a Lions tour happening this summer. That to me says that he'll take any option, as Z's the last letter of the alphabet, I think. And off the back of that, you look at it, you'll obviously hear whispers and whatever. How likely are we to see a Lions tour go ahead, do you think?
I think there's two views. One is, how can you possibly have a Lions tour without fans? If there's one, we love the fans inside our European matches because it's very tribal atmosphere. The Lions, as we all know, is another step again. So that's one view. And the other view is, look, we should, whether it's here, whether it's there, we should get something done. And again, I come back to the bigger picture of, what is most important. In the rest of this season, you've got domestic in, if you like, the French Pro 14 and the Premiership, then you've got the Europeans, you've got the Six Nations, you've got the Lions. That's all coming down the wire. And we shouldn't shirk from making tough decisions. I can't call whether the Lions should be deferred for a year. When you think about it, the press is saying, well, the English and the Irish don't want that because they've got big tours to Australia and New Zealand. And I guess they'd have a dozen or more players from each country involved in the Lions. But you don't win a World Cup with a dozen top players, do you? And so the squads need to be deep these days. I'm looking at, why wouldn't you preserve the Lions for what it represents? And if you have to wait a bit, wait. It's a novelty factor to have them come over here. But of course, if we're looking at the balance of the season and thinking that it could become pressured, and you don't have to be visionary to think it may be, then perhaps we're being too optimistic. But at the end, the interesting thing is that the decision makers are all the same. The Lions decision makers are also the Six Nations decision makers, and to a degree are also the EPCR decision makers. So they're the same people. So what you hope is that they look at this, as we all do. I've got no input to the Lions, no input to the Six Nations, but we have a big tournament, and we use the same players. So I think when the Lions meet this week, they're going to have all those things to look at, but they won't make a decision in isolation. And that's what gives me confidence that their eyes will be wide open, whatever they do. But Willie John McBride, it doesn't get any bigger than that, talks about the unique status of the Lions as a touring team. And I suspect when you strip it right back, that's really where it all starts and finishes.
All I'm taking from that is that I'm heading to South Africa at Christmas to watch a Lions tour. So that's all I'm taking from that.
I should be there as well.
And we know that Jason Leonard's part of that decision-making process, and he loves it all.
I've offered him a visit to all the vineyards that I'm connected to, so I'm sure that's another incentive.
Yeah, definitely. Last thing I'll ask then, just on this, because there are going to be questions, because it's around the French government. How is it possible that the French government have made this decision for European rugby, yet they're okay with at the minute as it stands, the Six Nations to go ahead? And is that something that you're factored in to say that actually, if the numbers get better in terms of COVID, so there's less cases and the pandemic is supposedly coming to at a slower rate with the vaccinations, etc., surely we'll be able to just play those 4 weekends without worrying about it, and the French government won't have a leg to stand on if they go ahead and play the Six Nations for the French national team?
I'll choose my words carefully. We've had to put up with, survive and deal with the British government's multiple decision making. And of course, everyone has a right to change their minds, and we've seen plenty of that as well. You're never going to make a call on people's health, but I'd throw it back and turn the question to another question, which is, where are the safest environments that have been created during this pandemic? And I pay great credit to the sports authorities, sports grounds, the stadia, certainly in the UK, and I think everywhere, that created incredibly safe environments for those players to go and play. So we're not talking about crowds, we're talking about players. So I think that the French government decision was extremely disappointing, because ultimately, I think all the leagues and EPCR, yes, there's been one or two cry-offs and one or two and a number of infections, but as a percentage, I pay credit to what the sports stadia have done to create secure environments. And I think that should have been the key issue. I've got no problem with the fact that if you shut down borders and you create natural cross flow, you prevent that, and then you're going to have a result. But flying players to and from in a secure environment, I'm not sure that they looked at that in enough depth. And certainly the presentation that LNR and EPCR made was very strong, that the protocols were absolutely tip-top, best in practice. So it's disappointing. But the bottom line is, this was, as I said at the very beginning, the timing is unfortunate because it was right at the stage where there was some nasty scenes of very, very serious inflows of sick patients to hospitals, particularly in the south of England, with this new strain. And, everyone was looking at that. I mean, Ireland's got the highest infection rate anywhere right now. So, it's incredibly difficult to call, and we're sports people and all the rest. But I think sport's really shown the way forward. And I think this was a knockback for that, which was unnecessary.
All right, Simon, well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll let you crack on. You've got a lot of work ahead of you, and best of luck sorting those tournaments out and getting them into 2021.
Thanks very much, guys.
Good luck.
Top bloke, yeah.
Too much detail for me. My head's going to explode. Genuinely.
He used some big words, but you know what I like about it is the fact that, we've had some big people on this podcast. We had Sir Bill come on, obviously Augustin Pichot, when they were battling out to become
Gary Graham,
World Rugby chairman. Simon Halliday is chairman of the EPCR. They're going through a crisis at the minute, and he's come on and just been as honest as he can with us around what's happening in the here and now. The future of the tournament is giving us insight in there. There's some big news coming down the way, and that sounds like it's there's going to be a bigger and longer term deal that's going to go ahead, which is great. And also, I like him even more because he just blames the French. It's the French. Just blame the French or China.
So French. What I was going to say, it does show you, though, doesn't it, how, and I'm not going deeper into humanisation, but how adaptable we are as humans. And I think it's really interesting what he said, because there's a lot of talk for sport to end, right? So a lot of people are saying, just cancel sport, cancel the football, and it's been all over the news. And we're close to the game, right, Goody? We know a lot of people in the game, both from a coaching perspective, training perspective, and the players as well. And I'll just kind of piggyback what Simon said there about how hard the teams are working. Like, not just the money that it's costing to test the players, but the bubbles that they're having to operate in, the sacrifices that we're all having to make, that that ultimately they're playing sport, have to come back to their families or whatever. So they are being extra careful. And what would we be now without having something to watch? What we do now without having nothing to watch at the weekend. So sport is entertaining us. I don't envy the people that are trying to make the decisions and trying to move everything around. They must be losing sleep. Because the reason why I asked that is because people are asking, well, why carry on with the Heineken Champions Cup? What's the point? Just cancel the 2 weekends. It's a different format, but there's so many different variables to that. Money, the sponsors, Heineken being the principal sponsor of the tournament, but
TV revenue as well from BT Sport. It keeps the clubs afloat as well, a lot of that.
And that's the point, yeah. And again, as I said last week, you know more about the commercials that lie behind all that, but they're so important for the game. And I got from that conversation that he thinks the Lions tour is going ahead around Christmas, and I'll be in South Africa for about 3 months, just checking the lay of the land. He'll be over there for Christmas without the family and just making sure.
Not even taking JJ, no?
I might take JJ, yeah.
Favourite
there. Yeah. But I'm actually taking a year off my life now. That's what I've said to Beck. I was 38 a couple of months ago. Nah, I won't. I'm 38 next November. This year isn't a year. This year isn't a year. Just to let everyone know, just if they're wondering why my 40th isn't happening on the 40th, it's because I'll be 39, but I'll be 40. Basically, I'll be doing it for Jim and just taking a couple of years off my life.
Goody, I saw you wrote an article in Rugby Pass about England taking a 28-man squad into the whole of the Six Nations this year. Do you want to talk us through some of the main points of what you covered in that?
Well, the clubs and the RFU and Eddie Jones have agreed that because of the situation we're in, the pandemic, the case around bubbles and training and clubs wanting to restrict players from coming back and forth, and obviously the RFU in England not wanting players to bring into camps, they've looked at how to restrict that movement, and they've decided that the best way to do it is Eddie Jones gets to pick a 28-man squad, of which they're going to stick together for the whole of Six Nations. a la a World Cup, or what they did in the Autumn Nations Cup, where I think he used 29 players in the Autumn Nations Cup overall. And so there's very limited movement. Now, clearly there's going to be some injuries, right? So he gets to name a 28-man squad that he keeps for the entirety of the competition. Those players, normally it's a 32-man squad, I believe. And sometimes he chucks a couple of rookies in there as well. And then he releases 7. So he keeps a squad of 25 from Tuesday onwards. So if you're one of those 7 players, you're doing all the hard England training, because the likes of, when George Cruz was there, he wouldn't train, obviously. We've learned that from Jim. And then George Cruz would play, and then you get sent back to your club. So those 7 boys would be doing all the training, go back to their clubs, back and forth, back and forth. So they're restricting that by having a 28-man squad that they can keep in their own kind of bubble. And yes, they'll be released to their families throughout periods of time, but they'll have very strict protocols around what they can and can't do. And ultimately, we're all in a lockdown. So if you're in an England squad, you don't want to be going, when you're released to your family for a few days,
Don't go.
Either don't go because the kids will be screaming, or if you are going to go, you're going to be super vigilant around what you can and can't do, unless you've got half a brain cell. And that's it, really. So there's 28 players. It then becomes a decision and a question around certain players and how you chop that up as a squad. We know Eddie Jones is all about winning week to week to week, and what it does do is it reduces the opportunities for some of the players that are putting their hands up in the Premiership. Joe Simmons, for example.
MBE.
I apologise, Joe. Joe Simmons, MBE, to break into the squad and be given an opportunity, which perhaps he might do. It also poses the question around what happens to Carl Sinckler and what is morally right around his 2-match ban. And the 2 matches are 2 meaningful games. So Eddie Jones announces the squad on Friday. If he puts Carl Sinckler in it, I'm just throwing it out there that the 2-game ban shouldn't include Bristol's game in the Premiership, because had he named him in the Six Nations squad, he wouldn't have played in that game anyway. So it doesn't become a meaningful game to miss. Well, yeah, it is. It is. So morally, you question what he's going to do. Does Eddie Jones then not pick him initially in the squad? Let him see out a game ban, only names 27 players on the initial squad, and then brings him in after that.
Manipulation again.
I
sound like a judge or a jury or a
lawyer.
lawyer.
I know, it's manipulation. Or does Eddie Jones take it on the chin, name him in the squad anyway, alongside 2 other tight head props, which would be Will Stewart and probably Harry Williams, or bring Dan Cole back. And, then that's 3 tight head props in a 28-man squad, where you can only chop and change players if there's probable serious injuries. It makes it interesting. So
what do you think he'll do?
I think Carl Sinckler should be banned for 2 meaningful games. And what that means is he either doesn't get picked in the England squad of 28, and then he hopes, and I say hopes, it's a horrible thing to hope someone gets injured so he can get called in further down the line. That would be fair. Or if Eddie Jones picks him, he has to miss the first 2 England games, which are Scotland and Italy, which are 2 guaranteed victories with bonus points anyway. So do you need Carl Sinckler? So you sit there and you think the sensible thing, and because you're going to get, Eddie Jones is going to get questioned. The Carl Sinckler thing is going to come up when he announces his squad, because people will be saying none of those players that get announced in that squad, and it happened, it's not just for this year because it's COVID. Every year, those players aren't available the week before the Six Nations starts for their clubs in a league game. Or if it's an Anglo-Welsh game, or whatever, they take them out. That's part of the agreement with the RFU and the PRL. So it doesn't count as a meaningful game. And, I generally think that if you're going to be honest and we're going to have morals around it, if you give them a 2-game ban, it should be 2 meaningful games. And the Bristol game in the league the week before the Six Nations, if he selects him in the England squad, shouldn't count as a meaningful game.
I ain't bothered either way.
No, you're not, because you're Scottish.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yeah. But do you think, Jim, do you think it's morally right then that if you're given a ban, the RFU or Eddie Jones or whoever can bend the rules to suit them? What's the point then of having a judicial system if there's ways around it? There was one comparison where a team a couple of years ago, I think it was a Welsh team, arranged a friendly fixture so that one of their players, that counted as a meaningful match. And
they've only done that. They've only done that recently. When I got banned, like it was a thing, for 12 weeks, I didn't miss 12 games. I missed the summer tour, and that was it.
Yeah, it was back in the day. It was weeks, wasn't it? So it didn't matter whether there's games or not. Now it's actually written in the laws. It's meaningful matches, and people say, "Well, Bristol's Premiership match is meaningful." Yes, it is, But if he's in the England squad, he wouldn't have been picked so he's not missing a game anyway. So we'll see. I just think that the right thing to do, there's an obvious right thing to do, and there's a way that people will see as bending the rules. So we shall see what develops from that.
And also, let's just end with this. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Eddie knows. Eddie knows.
Should we have a look at the rumour mill?
Oh,
Yeah, let's go on.
What's floating around, boys?
My first one, Saracens have a empty coach's space, a vacancy, call it what you will. Jim Hamilton to Saracens as forwards coach. Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, as charged.
But did you phone him and say, can I have the job, can I have the job, can I have the job?
Of course I did. Maybe a good job, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
A good job. I don't know. They like to do things internally, and there's been a big shift at Saracens, hasn't there? So I imagine, for the fact that they've got Maro Itoje and the Vunipola brothers, it's probably the most sought-after job in world rugby would be to be a forwards coach or defensive coach at Saracens. So we will see. They normally recruit within. So
Anyone?
Adam Powell, former player centre, he's been coaching the senior academy. I think he'll probably move up.
He stepped up already. They've announced that, Jim.
Well, there you go. So I'm just giving you
But
information that I got.
He's not a forward, though, is he, Jim?
He's not a forward. I don't know, mate. I don't know who they're going to employ. Who knows?
Haven't you got another friend that used to be at Saracens that's now coaching?
Well,
I've read this in the press.
In the rugby paper about Kelly Brown.
Yeah.
No comment.
That's a yes.
It's a who knows. That's what it is. So I don't know. It would be a good move for Saracens to bring someone like Kelly back, obviously, but he's contracted with Glasgow, and they had their first win in Conference A against Edinburgh. There was a train that went by just before half time. It was unbelievable. We should have seen it.
There we go. Anything
else?
Ones? Yeah, Michael Checker to Montpellier. He's been bubbling for a while.
That looks like it's probably happening, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I reckon Checker, in the position that Montpellier are in, it's ironic when your name's Michael Checker, you can name your checker. Do you get it, Jim?
Well, I get it, but who writes checks now? Everything's contactless. So
yeah, true.
Doesn't work. Not in France, though. They're definitely writing checks in France.
I don't reckon you can do a contactless amount for what Michael Checker could name his price for. If Alex Anderson if there's 500,000 reasons why Alex Anderson has gone to Sale Sharks, there's a million reasons why Michael Checker could go to Montpellier. What else? Chris Ashton. You said it earlier, Jim. He's basically phoning anyone and everyone to get out Harlequins, I've heard.
Desperate to go to Northampton is what I've heard.
Yeah. I think
family are from there, yeah.
I think that's where he's living again now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where he's living now. So it's a difficult one for Ashy, isn't it? 34. He had an absolute shocker against Racing. I don't know if you saw it. But
why are you being horrible?
It was awful. But he is still a good player. He's a winger. But the thing is now, it's like you look at the profile of players, and that list came out about the most well-paid players, from the fly half, and believe it or not, the second rows were there. The poor hookers, the bottom of the food chain. But someone like Ashy, who's 34, can score tries, can't catch a high ball, comes off his forehead, has been around the block a bit, and has left contracts. Like he left Saracens when he was under contract to go to Toulon, left Toulon under contract, goes to Sale, left Sale under contract. It's now at Quins, and it looks like they're not going to offer him a longer deal. You're thinking, well, how much does a Chris Ashton want?
How much does he want it as well?
Yeah, well, he'll want 200, 250. He might get offered 150, a bit less. But you think of young lads that come through now that are fast, right, and that are probably quite raw. You look at how Lewis Rees-Zammit come through as well. But there's players like that coming through the system now. So if you're a Northampton or Worcester or whoever, are you best placed to try and bring an academy player through and try and fill the void with that money that you've got, and money's tight, with a second row, or pay your poor hooker who's having to work as a bin man on the side as well because he's that underpaid? Give him a little bit more money as well. Who'd be a hooker? Who'd be a hooker in that team? Sorry, who'd be a hooker in any rugby team? The lowest paid players. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the other thing is the way you describe that, Jim. Not only how much does he want, but how much does he want it as well? Like you said,
you questioning his desire from that Racing game, are you?
I'm not, mate. I'm just saying you've spelt it out there that he left Saracens under contract, he left Toulon under contract, he left Sale whilst under contract, and this is coming from two guys that signed for London Irish but then didn't rock up. Well, you didn't rock up. I rocked up, didn't fancy it.
I did the rightful thing.
What was that? Sign the contract and then fuck it off.
So gave them plenty of notice, and basically, so I was honest with them. Jim, what's up with you? I'm fucked.
But yeah, that's the thing. So, you know, do you want to spend a chunk of money to a player that how long do you know whether he's going to be there or not? And in reality, the only two clubs I think that he in the UK would give everything for. He's been
Coventry.
Well, yeah, maybe he's been at both of them, hasn't he? In Saints and Sale. You know, he'd probably give everything to those couple of clubs for the last couple of years of his career, perhaps if he goes for a couple of years. But he can't get in the Quins team at the minute. Poor bloke. His last performance was bang average, but he's got a hell of a track record of scoring tries. So it's a decision. It's a luxury to have him, isn't it? If we're being honest. But I know he's been on the phone constantly to Alex Sanderson. He's phoning Mark Cueto up as well, trying to get him to sign for Sale as well. He's sorry for leaving. He wants his house back. He doesn't want to live in Northampton anymore, but then he does want to live in Northampton. He doesn't want to play for Quins, but then he does. Who knows? He didn't want a break 2 weeks ago. Just give the lad a break. Someone give him a deal, because it's good fun watching Ashley play.
What's happening with Tuolangi?
He's fucked at the minute. He's still coming back from his injury. Why? What do you know?
Is he staying at Sale?
It'll be interesting to see how Alex Sanderson manages him. I spoke to Josh Beaumont a couple of weeks ago. I did a feature with him for Rugby Pass, and we were chatting about Manu, and he said that everything looks on course. Achilles injuries are nasty, right? John Barkley, one of my good mates, ruptures Achilles, and not that he was the quickest anyway. I think he was all right after. It looked horrendous. The scar and stuff that he had after, and the rehab he had to do to get back from the Achilles injury was gnarly. And it's a big old injury. If you're Manu and you've been through that, you're on an artificial pitch at Sale, it's a difficult one to come back from. I think he will come back, but it's like, do you just now go away and try and cash in? And I say with that with the utmost respect. He could go to France, he can go to a Toulon and Racing, and they're teams that are being bandied about for him because they're two of the biggest names in rugby in France, in Europe, in the world, and they'd want him. Alex Sanderson would be very good at managing someone like Manu, though, in terms of making sure he got back to fitness, wouldn't put huge amounts of pressure on him. But if you're Manu Tuolangi and you've been through the mill and your ambition was probably to play for the British and Irish Lions, we know that was his big ambition. He told me that. He's told us that. So if that's now gone, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, right, there's a World Cup in France in a couple of years. Will my body hold out in a congested season if we see another congested season? Like, how does that look? Or do I sign a 2 or 3 year deal in France for big money because of the profile that I bring? Manu's a difficult one because of the injuries that he's had, but also the profile and the quality that he is. It's a really difficult player to answer questions on.
Yeah, it is difficult. And you know, if you're head of recruitment for any French club or Japanese club and you do your job well and you're worth your salt, you're going to look at it and go, how many games has he played over the last 2, 3, 4 seasons consistently? So, you know, I think, what was the stat when he came out of Leicester, when he left Leicester, he'd averaged 9 games a year across his career. That ain't a lot, is it, when you're paying someone a lot of money, especially under the current circumstances? And it's not, you don't look at it and go, oh, you know, it's because it's his fault or whatever. It's just a circumstance of how he plays and how physical he is, whether that's ball in hand or not. You know, you're going to get those injuries, and unfortunately, it's difficult for him because if you're a Racing or do you need him? No, because you've got Vakatawa. If you're Toulon or Toulouse, you know, the big clubs with big cash, maybe a Toulon you could see.
Top 14 is tough as well, though. That's a tough league.
It's brutal, mate. Yeah, it's brutal. And look at all the players that have gone there. And this is the thing. The only way Manu Tuolangi gets to the World Cup in France in 2023 is if he's well looked after by a club who are paying him his wages week to week to week, which, Jim, as you know, as I know, when you go to France, they expect a pound of flesh because they're paying you well, and rightly so. So you don't necessarily... The French club don't care how well you looked after. And do you then give up your England career in the hope that you can sign somewhere short term when you come? It's a big risk for everything, isn't it? So I don't know. It's tough, and you know, you'd love to be Manu Tuolangi fit and firing, but actually, there's some tough decisions for him to make for him and his family, and what's best for him and his family around his career. And you know, you hope he's got 5 years left, but his injury profile ain't great, is it?
Any other rumours floating around?
We can throw one more in there because my mates in Cheltenham and Gloucester will be devastated. They're not going to see a white Lamborghini rocking around with a tattooed South African-looking Hercules and Francois Hogarth. He's leaving Worcester. Can you see that?
Yeah, I heard it as well.
Best player?
Yeah, I've heard he's off back to the Bulls, where he started his career, and he's been brilliant for Worcester. Let's not beat around Jim's bush. He has been brilliant at times, but all good things come to an end. I've heard Will Chudley is being lined up to be his replacement from Bath, who's a very good scrum half. Obviously, plied his trade at Exeter as they progressed through and started challenging at the top end of the Premiership, and then moved on to Bath as he fell behind Nick White and other players at Exeter. And now, obviously, Ben Spencer's gone to Bath. I really rate Will Chudley, so I think he'd be brilliant for Worcester if Hugard does part ways at the end of the season. So, yeah, it'd be a shame to see Hugard leave because he has been brilliant in the Premiership, and he's definitely a bums on seats player for Worcester. But Will Chudley going there will certainly, fill that void as well as he can.
Right. Well, the riddle went down well last week, and we've got time for another one this week, haven't we, Jim?
Yeah, we have. And I'm going to give you the riddle intro with the emotion and the energy that I'm feeling. It's that time of the week, lads. It's Jim will solve it. Riddle me this, lads. Riddle me that, Carol. Where are you? I've not heard of you this week. Jim will solve it, lads. Peel back.
Is that it?
That's it. That's it.
People love the long one. I was going through Gerrard's Cross last week, and people like that. Goody, where's Jim?
Well, hit me with it. Hit me with it. If I get it, I'll hit you with it. If I get it quickly and it boosts the adrenaline levels, then I'll smash one at the end. But all you're getting now is a peel back.
One rabbit saw 6 elephants while going to the river. Every elephant saw 2 monkeys going towards the river.
Jesus.
Every monkey holds 1 parrot in their hands. How many animals are definitely going towards the river? Jim, you love maths.
Okay, so one rabbit, has he got 2 eyes, the rabbit, right? So he ain't seeing things. One rabbit saw 6 elephants, right? So hang on, let me write that down. So one rabbit, 6 elephants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm doing like a tally thing, 6. So one rabbit saw 6 elephants while going to the river. Every elephant saw 2 monkeys. My word. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right. Every monkey holds 1 parrot in their hands. Right. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. How many animals are definitely going towards the river? Well, there's a lot of them. And if there's crocodiles and lions, one of them's getting eaten on the way to the river, is all I'm thinking, because there's a lot of them and one will be slower than the other and others won't know that the lions come in. And then if they go near the river, the crocodile might come out and eat them. But let me just see. 1, 2, 3. If my tally's right, I've got 25 animals that are definitely going towards the river.
Negative.
Is the rabbit going to the river or not?
We're getting there. Read it again.
So one rabbit saw 6 elephants. So he's there looking, thinking, right, these elephants.
Stop trying to add to the
saw
story.
6 elephants while going.
Jim.
I've got it, I think. So one rabbit saw 6 elephants while going. So he saw them. He saw them, right? So that doesn't mean they're going. They could be cleaning each other with their big, long trunks. Every elephant saw 2 monkeys going towards the river. Oh, okay, so the monkeys are going. So wait there. So one rabbit's going, 2 monkeys. So every elephant, oh gosh. So the elephants aren't going. So I need to cross them out. They're definitely not going. But the monkeys are. Every monkey holds 1 parrot in their hands. Okay, so I need to just take the elephants out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
No.
How? So give me some hints. So one rabbit saw 6 elephants while going to the river.
Yeah.
So the elephants ain't going. As thirsty as they are, they ain't going, right? They've got away.
Yeah.
Every elephant saw 2 monkeys going towards the river. So the monkeys are going to the river, right?
Yeah.
So I've got that. So
how many monkeys?
There's 12 of them.
Really?
Well, every elephant, there's 6 elephants, saw 2 monkeys going.
Did they see two monkeys going, or did they see two monkeys each?
So there's two monkeys going with one rabbit.
Yeah.
Every monkey holds one parrot in their hands. Is it each hand or not? God, this is.
What does it say? Every monkey. Right, every monkey. How many monkeys were there?
There's two of them. Lovely little things.
Right. And so every monkey holds one parrot in their hands. How many parrots are there then?
There's four.
Why is there four?
Well, they've got two hands, have they? Not monkeys or not?
How many? I mean, if you hold a parrot in your hands, how many parrots have you got in your hand?
Well, I could hold three in one hand, and my hands are that big and strong.
If you hold
Every
one parrot-
monkey, just hear me, hear the sentence. Every monkey holds one parrot in their hands. Every monkey
So
holds.
there's five. Is there five? There's five.
Five what?
5 animals definitely going towards the river. Yay! I've got it. See, it's all right when you write it down, you do the tally and stuff like that. It's it just takes a bit of time, and we've all got time on our hands now, and that's cheered me up. So I'm going to hit you, lads. Riddle me this, lads. Riddle me that, Carol. We'll see you around the Six Nations if it goes ahead. If not, we'll see you next year. I'll still be 38. Jim just solved it. I'm out of breath.
Right, let's finish things off with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Suns are with us as usual to help everyone out with their lid in 2021. They're a men's health brand that's helping guys with one of the key issues that they don't often talk about: how to keep their hair. Suns offer a range of licensed and medically proven products for preventing and treating hair loss, as well as a free online consultation with GPs. And they deliver via a monthly or 3-monthly subscription direct to your door. It's reasonably priced with no contract or hidden charges, and most importantly, they get results in 9 out of 10 men. So say hello to the new old you. Visit suns.co.uk and use the code rugbypod20 to get 20 quid off your first order. That's sons.co.uk and use the code rugbypod20.
Yeah, not much ruggers to talk about, but I found a few good, bad and ugly bits around the game this weekend. We'll start off with the good, and we'll start off in France, Jim. Where are we going?
Toulon?
Yes, you read my mind.
No, I just saw the clip and I saw the tackle on Vakatawa and know that Toulon beat them, and saw Ebenezer Beth, good friend of mine, make a break. And I thought you might have been going there. That's all I've seen.
Yeah. Well, Toulon get a mention in the good this week, winning away at Racing 29-23, and specifically Gabin Villiers in not giving up on what some might say was a lost cause, as Vakatawa went over the line from the most ludicrous offload from Teddy the Bear Thomas. Vakatawa, what are you doing, son? Put the ball down.
How hard was the tackle as well?
Oh, he's absolutely belted him. Did you see Vakatawa's face afterwards? He's like, oh, properly hurt that. So fair play to Toulon, winning up at La Défense Arena, a massive victory for them. Both teams are near the top of the top 14, so good stuff by Toulon. What else was good? We'll stay in France. Cast, another away victory. They won away at Montpellier in a battle of the basement. A 72nd minute Vaidpoulou score and a Ben Erdepageta conversion, won at 21-19. So a big performance by them. They've been in trouble, Cast. They've been mentioning the bad a few times. So we'll get them the good this week. What else was good? It's a great week to be a Sale Sharks fan. Player, coach, owner, corporate hospitality member, Pete Anglesey, dog walker, whatever you are, it's a great week for Sale Sharks because they have got Big Al's services as Director of Rugby. He's a fantastic appointment, and that club can now move forward, looking up the table and expect to be winning the World Cup, as Jim said, in a couple of years.
Yeah. Is that the good?
That's not the good.
No.
What else is good? Glasgow. Always Glasgow, isn't it? Is it always Glasgow? Or no, they beat always Edinburgh. It's Glasgow Warriors.
We are. Hashtag we are, I think.
We are Warriors. Beating always Edinburgh 23-22 in the 1872 Mickey Mouse Cup. Ross Thompson gets a big mention as well. Man of the match, 13 points on his first start for the club. Even the train driver absolutely did Cockers and Edinburgh over by tooting his hurt just before half time. Nick Groom didn't know what he was doing. Ran backwards about 40 yards, kicked the ball out. They get the penalty to go 1 point down just before half time. It all worked for Glasgow, didn't it, Jim?
It did. Did anyone see the last play of the game or not?
No.
Well, let me inform you quickly. Yeah, so Glasgow winning the game by 1 point, like we just mentioned then. And they were carrying on playing. They just needed to kick the ball out. but no one knows if there's going to be a third 1872 Cup, which will come down to the aggregated scores of the 2 games, or whether there won't be a game. So we're doing the commentary, obviously well-informed or ill-informed. We're not sure whether it's going to go ahead, but the players didn't know whether it was going to go ahead. Kelly Brown shouting, kick the ball off, and Ryan Wilson shout, keep the ball on. So no one knows. And the moral of the story is, who knows?
And who won the first game, Edinburgh?
Hashtag, yeah. Always.
What was the score in that one, Jim?
Oh, it's a classic 10-7, I think. I'm not going to work out the aggregates.
Okay.
I'm not working out the aggregates. It's not about me. This is your segment.
No, you're correct. You're correct. So Glasgow Warriors get a mention in the Good, but the Good this week can only go to one team, one place, and it is the Ealing Trailblazers, trailfinders.com, multi travelling millionaires. An outstanding victory. They absolutely spanked Saracens 27-26.
It was effectively a draw, but yeah, fine.
In the Trailblazers Cup. Big statement for them. You got to tip the slipper to them, tip the hat. Craig Willis kicking, penalties galore. My old understudy, great bloke as well. So a big tip of the slipper to the Ealing Trailfinders.
All right, I'll give it a bit.
Yeah. Bad. A couple of bad bits. We'll start off with Reece Patchell. Unfortunately, sounds like he's been ruled out of the Six Nations from injury, so a massive loss for them. Wales rugby in general have got a lot of injuries at the minute. I was looking through the list this morning. You go Alan Jones, is he going to be fit? Ken Owens, Josh Navidi. The list carries on. There's loads of injuries. Ants comes out. Just hope Bigaroo's fit. Sheedy may play, actually, to be fair. But yeah, loads of injuries and massive pressure on Wayne Pivac. His squad comes out on Wednesday, I believe. So watch this space for that. But bad news, Reece Patchell out for the Six Nations. What else was bad? Montpellier. We mentioned that Cast beat them. They go in the bad Montpellier. They lost at home to Cast. And that's now 7 defeats on the spin. Michael Checker, name your price, son, because he's coming in to save them. Pretty bad from them at the minute. I just blame Jim Hamilton from being Trey Fatigue back in the day.
Well, I will go there and make up for it. 500 grand a year, 2-step lobs all day long. They will start winning lineouts.
Good stuff. What else was bad? Saracens losing to the Trailblazers, but not only losing to the Trailblazers, losing their Trailblazer, their head coach, their main man.
Oh, what a segue.
Yes.
What a segue. Loved it. Absolutely loved that.
Losing Alex Sanderson earlier in the week. So bad news for them. And then they back that up with a loss to the Trailblazers. But the bad this week can only go to Nick Groom. I'm sorry, you're a scrum half. You should know better. You should have your eye on the clock throughout the whole game. You should understand what is going on and not listen to the trains going by.
Who's on trains now? That's what I'm thinking. I'm watching and I'm not thinking about the kick. I'm thinking, who's on a train now? Stay home to eat out, but don't eat out, but stay home. I'm just thinking, who's on there?
Well, you missed it in comms, so because you were walking down the stairs getting a COVID test going out the back.
Three lads.
Yeah.
Keep your mask on, take it off, put it on your head, put it out your nose. What?
Yeah. So the bad this week goes to Nick Groom for jogging backwards, giving Glasgow 40 metres, kicking it into touch. They get a penalty from the line out. Boom. 3 points. The ugly, I couldn't really find any ugly, so I'm just going to give it to Virimi Vakatawa for his kind of showboating. Get over the line, son. Put it down. Put it down. You're 17-3 down in the game at home. A ludicrous offload, as I said earlier, from Teddy Thomas. Get over the line, put it down. Stop smiling. Stop having fun on the rugby field. Oh no, here comes Gavin Villiers. Boom! And he properly gave it to him. So that's the only ugly thing I could really find. So I'm going to give it to Virimi Vakatawa. But if you watch the highlights, he was ridiculous. So I'll tip the slipper to him as well.
Thanks, Goody. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, producer Tim. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. Leave us a review and check us out on YouTube as well.
Rugby pod, I think. Who knows?
Pod.